this. Let's, if we can, if people are uncomfortable, maybe move forward a little. Not maybe move forward. Y'all just move forward a little bit. All right. Nobody's moving. Come forward, please. It's okay. You know, we gotta get comfortable being around one another. You know, sensing one another's spirit and smelling each other. So, super excited to be here today. This is, you guys should get the best information of all of our audiences this week. This is my third time presenting this information. And quite frankly, I'm really excited and fired up, and especially since I have presented this type, I'll say this type because I've tweaked a little bit of information this week, and I've seen what registered with people, and I've also seen what kind of went over people's head or what wasn't presented very well, and then I've had a lot of feedback this week as well. So I'm really excited. So the title of the talk is Optimizing Body Composition. I guess it would probably sell 98% as well if it was weight loss, but not everybody needs to lose weight. But ultimately, my endeavor in particular is to help people build health, and ultimately a part of being healthy is having an optimized body composition. So, and then as well, if you Google weight loss, you might see, you know, a thing or two on the internet about weight loss, right? Ultimately, you're going to see 27,000 pages of, you know, anything and everything under the sun on weight loss. So we're gonna try and provide clarity for that. If you want the PowerPoint, it's in your notes. For those of you who have notes as well, should be an email or my email. You can just email us and we'll send you the whole presentation. We'd love to do that. We like it when people want to take the information and, you know, check it out for themselves or maybe do some homework. And our office is an Elevation Health office. And so what that means is that, number one is that we teach people and we incorporate through the core four approach that there are these four core principles or tenets that basically are a mirror to us on which direction we're moving in our health. And so we'll talk about that today as well. So next slide, Steve, please. Good. So in our in our office, how do you know what your body weight should be? You know, that's number one. How do you know? How do most people try and figure that out? Any ideas or suggestions? By your height. That's a great one, right? Except you'll see an NFL player, right, who's 5'9", 232 pounds, 6.2% body fat, and incredible health, and he goes to a standard doctor and they say, sir, you're 78 pounds overweight. You've got some health issues, right? So typically it's a chart on a wall, you know, or a chart on the internet that says you're 5'4", you should be between this weight and this weight, right? And we found that that is incredibly inaccurate, right? So what we use, there's a scale we have in our office. It's called the Valhalla Scientific Scale. Just to give you an idea, it cost us $4,000 for the scale. So I say that because it still stings, but. We bought that scale at the time because we wanted to be able to ascertain some certain things on our patients and to help patients. So yes, it will give you current body weight, and it will give you total body fat percentage, and it will show you body water percentage, and it will show you a body mass index. But also what it shows, and the reason that I have the scale is because it shows your target weight range. Yours. Based upon real time that day. And the reason I say that is, you could get on that scale a month later, and this target weight range does what? Changes, right? Because most people, they get really focused on a number or a range, right? That somehow they ascertain, possibly by a scale, possibly by a chart, possibly by something when they were 18. You know, they say, when I was 18, I was this weight, and that's the weight I'd like to get back to. And then as I have patients and we talk about goals, they'll say things like, they'll come in and they'll say, Doc, I want to lose 40 pounds, right? And their Valhalla scale says they need to lose 10. Or conversely, we'll have the patient that says, I just want to get rid of 10 pounds. And their Valhalla scale says they need to lose 50. Right? So just again, looking at metrics and, you know, the way that we practice and things that I'm passionate about is that this is really, really important to get an idea of what your actual target weight range is. I had a patient in the practice, he was actually in yesterday, but he started in care 3 weeks ago. Stage 4 cancer, had metastasized from his liver to his lymph nodes into his stomach. Not a good situation. And you know, given the whole 3 months to live thing. And as I'm chatting with his family, because he came with his family, his wife and 2 children, and we're just chatting, getting to know one another. They don't know me, they've never heard me speak before, which is good. And he said, you know, they said he's always been healthy. He's always been healthy. And I said, great. And of course, what does that mean? Yeah, but vague, right? Right, very vague. Always been healthy. So as we go through the history and everything, we put him on the Valhalla scale, and he was 50 pounds over on his target weight range. And in the last 3 months, he's lost 30 pounds. So that means probably 3 months ago, he was what? 80 pounds over, right? And then he's on, and I don't know the number, I need to look, he was on 6 or 8 medications. But he's always been healthy. He's always been healthy. Which kind of meant, and you know, in their language, in a lot of people's language, it meant that I guess he hadn't spent a lot of time in the hospital, hadn't had a lot of parts removed, maybe hadn't had cancer before. So the way that they defined health was that. But the challenge was, guess what? He wasn't healthy. And hadn't been healthy for a long time. Right? So one of the metrics that I like for people to know is, what is your target weight range? So if you're in the practice, if you're a patient in our practice, or if you're not a patient in practice, find a technology that really tells you your target weight range. So you can be honest with yourself. So you can know where you're at, and you can strive towards being in a weight range that's a truly healthy weight range. Not for vanity's sake, for health's sake. You know, because sometimes we can be misled, right? When that person says, either way, they say, I need to lose 40 pounds. No, you need to lose 4, right? You're just, something's clicked in your head that's not right. Or conversely, again, and I'm very passionate about this, the person who thinks that they need to lose 10 pounds, but they need to lose 50. Because we're going to get into a couple studies here that really, really say why that's important. So, very important. Next slide, Steve. Hey Josh, could you bring my water as well? There's a Turbis tumbler back there if you would. This is really the nuts and bolts behind understanding your body. Everybody's body utilizes either, we'll call it sugar or fat, as their primary source of energy. It's not about calories in relation to moving towards our body composition. So our bodies are designed to utilize sugar or fat as our primary source of energy. If we are a sugar burner, this accelerates aging in what? In what?
Every way.
Every way. One of the things that, if you haven't heard me talk before, if you're not like a live audience, we'll do push-ups and we'll do burpees and jumping jacks, so just pay attention here, okay? So it accelerates aging where? In every way. In the brain, in the nervous system, in our hormones, in our joints, and then dash pain. We'll struggle with what? Cravings. We'll have muscle and bone deterioration or wasting away. We'll have energy that's depleting. So, a common question in the office today, Doc, what do you have for energy, right? Do you have a pill or a vitamin for energy? Come on, what do you have, right? I get that question all the time, right? Dysfunctional hormones. This state is a disease-friendly state. It's fat storing. And you'll struggle or it will be impossible to lose what? Not weight. You guys aren't reading. Oh, what happened? You'll struggle or it will be impossible to lose what? Fat. Because oftentimes people get really focused on that number on the scale, right? And they do the big old Yahoo. Woohoo! I lost 4 pounds. But what they lose sometimes? 4 pounds of muscle. 4 pounds of bone density. As you get older, trust me, you will covet bone density, right? And you will covet muscle mass, right? You will want it. Like sometimes ladies are like, I don't really want to be muscular. It's like, look, as you get older, you're going to want all the muscle you can possibly have and retain. Absolutely, right? You want strength and you want bone density, right? So you'll struggle or it'll be impossible to lose fat. Now what's important here is, yes, if you starve yourself, if you don't ingest very many calories for a period of weeks or months, will you lose weight? Probably. Eventually, will it kind of tail off? Yes. But will you be healthier? No. Absolutely not. So it's brain depleting because the brain is designed to run on fat. So the primary fuel for the brain is fat. Alzheimer's is now being called what? Type 3 diabetes. Not type 1, not type 2, type 3. Alzheimer's is being called type 3 diabetes because the receptors in the brain are just getting burned out. And it's another kind of thing associated with Alzheimer's. It's pro-inflammatory, and we're toxin storing. So who wants to be a sugar burner? Say no. I'm going to give you your answer, because if someone said me, I'd say that's it, we're done. All right. Nobody wants to be a sugar burner as your primary source of fuel. When do you want to burn sugar? Probably if you're sprinting. You know, if you have to go if you're being chased by a lion, sugar's a great source of fuel. I mean, it's awesome. You don't want to wait until your body kicks into fat burning. So it's like sugar, you know, it's like turbocharged. Conversely, when we're burning fat for energy, we have healthy leptin levels, which I'll talk about, and we're keto adapted. So it slows aging. Raise your hand if that's okay. Slow aging, good. Optimum performance, sustained energy for our brain, nerve system, body, exercise, muscle, joint, and bone building and preserving, youthful hormones or the restoration of youthful hormones, disease preventing and reversing. Fat will literally melt off your body and stay off. It's anti-inflammatory and it's detoxifying.
I want the fat burner.
Very good, thank you. Raise your hand if that's what you want.
I was listening.
That's what everybody wants. That's what everybody wants. It's also what everybody envies when we see somebody who's in that state. Those are the people we tend to not like, right? We're just like, I don't like them. And these people, just an FYI, they're the people who can, so to speak, eat junky, and nothing changes, right? I had a friend in high school, one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life, and at the time I didn't understand this, but he was this. And he could eat anything he wanted, and it didn't matter. Fat would melt off him. He had whatever, you know, the upgraded version of an 8-pack is. Like, he had the next thing, whatever. You're like, how many of those things do you have there? You know, it's like, there's so many, you know, ridges in his abdomen. You're just like, I don't get that. And I remember I said, here's what I'm going to do. Whatever he does, that's what I'm going to do. Whatever he does, that's what I'm going to do. Like, that way I can have what he has, right? And he ate Doritos, and he ate ham sandwiches, and it didn't matter. He was genetically gifted, so to speak. We'll call it that. He was genetically gifted, and he just hadn't broken this yet. So his still worked. These are the people who, again, high school reunions, right? Facebook. You're like, oh my gosh, what happened to them, right? They used to be so lean, so strong, and you're like, oh my. I'm like, I'm glad I did not choose that, or I'm glad she didn't choose me, because it didn't turn out so well for her. Right? You're like, what is that? You're like, how could that be? Right? So everybody in this room, you're primarily here or here, okay? And you can choose as well where you want to end up as well. So if you're here, if you do enough wrong things over time, eventually you'll click. You'll go here. And then you'll probably be like, oh, woe is me. You're like, what happened? I've always been able to eat cake for breakfast, you know? And it never affected me. And then boom, it'll switch. Conversely, if you're here, and maybe you've been here your whole life, or you've been here since you were 2, you can get here. Okay? So would it be okay if I taught you that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
It's extremely, 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 extremely powerful. At least I think it is. You know, especially seeing it in my practice and seeing it happen for people. So this is what we're going to teach. And then we're going to do a demo as well. We're going to do a demonstration on a little thing that I can teach you that will help you. And then we'll finish up as well. So, Steve, you got any questions about that? No. All right, awesome. Next slide. So I'm a big fan of metrics. say that a lot. That's just a term of measuring things and looking at things. So there's a hormone in the body called leptin, right? Leptin, and this is your fat-burning hormone. Leptin is a fat-burning hormone. When we first, this is on a patient, this is on the same patient, on August the 5th of 2014, we had a patient come in about 60 pounds overweight, stage 4 cancer as well, and again, bad prognosis. So his leptin initially was 22.1. Where we want our leptin to be on this, utilizing this particular lab, because different labs have different ranges, you want it to be 4 to 8. When your leptin is 4 to 8, your body's in a fat-burning state. So that's, again, where we want to be. So his was 22.1. It didn't matter what he did, his body was not going to lose body fat. Okay? And with cancer, he probably would have lost a lot of weight at the end, but it wouldn't have been fat. Okay? So we put him on the advanced cellular healing diet. I wrote out for him a nutrition protocol, supplement protocol, and on 9/25 of 2014, 3 weeks later, he retested. He went from 22.1 to 8.3, and in however many days that is, he lost about 35 pounds. Okay, 35 good pounds, right? And so his body turned back into a fat burner. So it can take anywhere from 1 to 8 weeks of following the protocols for your body to switch over, right? And so another term for switching over in addition to leptin optimizing is called keto-adapted. So it just simply means that your body is able to burn fat for energy and produce ketones. So this is where we want to be. Very, very important. But the key, and you'll probably hear me say this a lot because I don't want anybody who wants to do this to fail, is it can take 1 to 8 weeks. Typically for ladies it takes longer. Okay, not longer than 8 weeks, but men sometimes can click in like 2 days. And that's why we don't necessarily like that, you know. So if you do this together as a husband and a spouse, or, you know, as a wife and a husband, don't get angry, ladies, right? Because that can happen. It's just like, oh, I hate him, you know. He's lost 14 pounds already and I've lost 2. It's just like it takes a while to change that. But remember what happens when you become a fat burner. You get all of those, additional bonuses, or all those additional prizes come with it, right? So it's like buying the bamboo steamer, right? You get the steamer, then you get all these other things. You guys remember the bamboo steamer? Some of you are like, I don't know. You should check it out. So, next slide, please. The brains of obese people looked 16 years older and had 8% less brain tissue, so almost 10% less brain tissue than their healthy counterparts of normal weight. And those who were overweight, not obese, but overweight, looked 8 years older than their leaner counterparts and had 4% less brain tissue compared to normal weight individuals. Much of the tissue was lost in the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain, the place from which we make what? Decisions and store memories, among other things leading to a heightened risk for Alzheimer's disease. Separate study, those who were overweight, so not obese now, just overweight, lost about 8.4 years off of their what? Lives, and 18.8 more years of poor health or suffering. If they were men, if they were men, and 6.1 years off their lives, and 19.1 years of poor health if they were women. So again, when we talk about body composition, optimizing body composition using a scale like the Valhalla, that really tells us where we're at, and hopefully we're in that target range. But if we're not, the consequences are this: 19.1 more years of poor health and suffering. So sometimes patients will say, I'm really struggling with discipline, it's really hard for me to stick to it. I'll say, look, maybe this will help you. If you're overweight, the studies show you're going to have 19.1 years of poor health and suffering. Is that worth a few weeks of kind of getting keto adapted and getting into the habit? Is it worth it? And sometimes it's like, yes, fine, I get it now. I'm disciplined now. I'm motivated now. I'm inspired now by that. Let alone, years of less life, right? And let alone brain shrinkage. I don't know about you all, but I want to use and keep everything I have, you know, and hopefully optimize it or heighten it. But man, I don't think I can afford in my life to have brain shrinkage, you know. Life's hard enough. So, very important. Next slide. Yeah, and on some, again, remember, if we're a sugar burner as our primary source of fuel, our brain is shrinking. The bigger a person's belly, so waist to hip ratio, the smaller the brain's what? Memory center, also known as the hippocampus. As your hippocampus shrinks, your memory declines. In addition, the researchers found that the bigger the belly, the higher the risk for small strokes in the brain, also known to be associated with declining brain function. Along with this study, many others have confirmed that for every excess pound put on the body, the brain gets a little smaller, right? And how many people have found as well, in your case, if you're going to put on weight, sometimes it's around your belly, right? And that's, again, that's that sugar burner type of fat burner type thing, is that's where the body's going to store it, amongst other places as well. But even sometimes in our culture, people kind of dress and do everything they can to kind of, you know, de-emphasize their belly and shrink that in. Some people don't, and they should, you know, they should really focus on not showing that, you know, it's not good. But this to me, like when I read this, it inspires me. It really, you know, dials me in as well. Next slide, please. Look at that. I don't know how that happened, but it's pretty cool. So, weight gain and cancer, again, my story is my mom was diagnosed with lymphoma when I was 4, and basically battled lymphoma my whole life, up until the last 10 years or so. And so there is an association as well. And that's why I don't like pink buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? And I don't like pink boxes of Krispy Kreme donuts, right? Where it's like, hey, if you buy these Krispy Kreme donuts, we're going to donate 2 cents to, you know, the American Cancer Society. So buy these pink, you know, Krispy Kreme donuts. It's like that doesn't make sense. That's disingenuous. So again, there is a strong link between weight and cancer, and yet obviously skinny people get cancer as well. Next, Steve. New study reveals sugar also does what? This is brand new, but it's really powerful, because what they found is that sugar and being a sugar burner is actually an oncogenic event, which just simply means that, you know, for years we've preached and taught, and the studies show that sugar actually, you know, fuels cancer and is, you know, is a preferred fuel for cancer to grow and spread. But now what we're seeing is that what's been shown is that it's actually oncogenic, which means it's cancer causing, right? And so oftentimes, you know, we lament, we're sad, we get frustrated when people smoke cigarettes, right? Sometimes we're like, oh, I wish they wouldn't do that. Don't they know those are harmful for them? You know, those are linked to cancer, lung cancer, right? And people know that as well. And there's a warning on those things now also. Sugar's the same way. Sugar is actually oncogenic. It's carcinogenic. It actually now, as opposed to being proven previously that it fueled cancer, it's now been shown that it actually, in and of itself, can create cancer in the body. So when we go back, if we went back to that sugar burner slide, what was one of the things that goes along with that but are cravings, right? Is that you and or I can struggle with cravings while we're a sugar burner, because that's the way the body is processing. And if our sugar, typically your sugar goes up, and then it plummets, and when it plummets, your body says, give me some sugar, right? Because I feel horrible. So then it kind of comes up, and you do this all day long, right? So just really important to understand. Hopefully, again, this will help give people fuel, if you will, to stick to it. You know, to be disciplined until those cravings are broken, and until you're fat burning, and then those cravings really, really, really do go away, right? Barbara, right, if you don't mind, because you've gone through this process. Previous to learning this and doing this, did you have cravings, or were you kind of addicted to sugar? Or?
My whole life, I used to wake up in the middle of the night. I was one of those people that would eat a bowl of Cheerios or cereal at like 2 in the morning, and just, but even if I wasn't overweight or thought I was healthy, but since I've been on the cellular healing diet, I don't wake up and eat anymore.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever, no cravings.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I same way. I would have cravings, and oftentimes I would think that I was giving into them with healthy things, right? But it was really carbohydrates is what I was giving into them with. And same thing, I've had those cravings either right before bed, or in the middle of the night, or first thing in the morning type thing. Typically, and that's pretty classic as well. So for those of you here, if you have those like post-supper cravings, middle of the night cravings, you're a morning carbohydrate person, this is all part of that. And that can and will go away. Like it literally can and will go away. Once it's gone, it's glorious, because then you don't even think about it. Next. So this is leptin. It gives you a little bit more of a picture of leptin's effect, because I don't want to just not expose you to it. Leptin has a huge role on fat here, but it also affects vascular function, so cardiovascular function. It affects reproduction. It affects bone and cartilage. It affects immune system modulation. So it has an effect on all of these different aspects, plus other targets of leptin include the kidney, the bowels, the pancreas, and muscle. So again, just kind of understanding the orchestra of the body. Next. Next slide. Good. And this is perfect as well. So you can, again, the two fancy terms I want people to take away, like if I see you, a week or a month or a year down the road, I can give you a pop quiz, right, and see how well I taught this, and say, hey, what were those two terms that I taught you, right? And hopefully you'll say leptin or leptin, either way is fine. If you can remember like the T, right? Leptin and ketoadaptin. And they go hand in hand. They work basically as partners, if you will, in the body. So you may Google ketogenic diet, keto adapted, etc. What we know scientifically is really amazing is that everything here on the left, it's been proven that a ketogenic diet helps. So it helps heart patients and or keeps people from being a heart patient. It helps epilepsy, it helps weight reduction, and it helps diabetes. So we scientifically proven, nobody who is a healthcare provider or is into the science could argue that. Here on the right, these are 4 things, except cancer now, because this cancer actually is here. It is proven multiple times in the last few years that a ketogenic diet prevents and reverses cancer. So it's not a theory anymore or a hypothesis. As well, we're seeing amazing changes in the body for acne, for neurological disease, and for polycystic ovarian syndrome, so hormone issues as well. So the most efficient approach to accelerate the body's ability to access and burn body fat is to restrict dietary what?
Carbohydrate.
While increasing fat intake for a period of several weeks, after which fatty acids and ketones become the primary fuel at rest and during submaximal exercise. So again, this unique metabolic state is basically, again, been shown to be performance enhancing, disease reversing. So again, as I teach you different foods to look out for and things to avoid, just understand scientifically what we're working on. Next. Effects of keto adaptation on peak fat oxidation. So really powerful study here. Trained and untrained subjects. 300 subjects were in this study. It says here, 6 highly trained cyclists exercise at 60 to 65% of peak aerobic power before and after 4 weeks of a ketogenic diet. 4 weeks of keto adaptation resulted in marked increases in peak what? Fat burning and maintenance at endurance performance. All of the cyclists exceeded the highest value in Venables group. So this is cyclist, and this is their fat burning. The higher the better. Before they were keto adapted, so following what I would call a traditional diet, which would have been more high carbohydrate, and this is them after they're keto adapted. So again, this is average. Average here before was 28 on peak fat oxidation, and then the average after keto adaptation was 90. So what have we typically trained or heard athletes to do, especially endurance athletes? What do they need to do? They need to carb load. Lots of pasta, lots of bread, right? Lots of fruits. That's what we've been trained. That's what people have been trained on. Except guess what? We missed the mark. It's not how the body's designed. The body's designed to burn fat for fuel, not carbohydrates, right? And when you burn fat for fuel, it's absolutely amazing at endurance and things like that. So if you were an endurance runner, like maybe a 10K, a half marathon, a marathon, or a cyclist, or now they even have these running races that are 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, traditionally what you did is you loaded up on carbohydrates, right? And then during the race you loaded up on more carbohydrates, right? Gatorade, fruit juice, fruit, etc. Now, all these records are being shattered by people who are doing it keto adapted, because then they can use fat as their primary source of fuel. Even if they're really lean, someone who has 7-8% body fat has tens of thousands of calories to burn, right? Versus if you're utilizing sugar, how many calories do you have? Any nurses, doctors, exercise geniuses? At most, you're going to have 2,000 calories. That's what you're going to have. And once you deplete that, you're bonking. You're depleting until you put in more sugar, right? So it's really cool to understand how it works. Earlier I missed it. I got all fired up on fat burning, but I had a little picture there on the top, right? And it said fearfully and wonderfully made, right? Because there's a scripture, Psalm 139:14, talks about that, right? It says, I will praise you, Lord, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that my soul knows well. When a child is born, as long as they're not too messed up in the womb, their primary source of fuel that they utilize is fat, right? And the children, they're nice and soft and cuddly, and they smell great, and they have a lot of brown fat, which is actually good fat. And they're designed to ingest what? What's a baby designed to ingest? No. This is not like a trick question. Let's try this again, all right? The baby's born, right? Comes out. You know, they clean him off and spank his hiney, right? Thank you so much. Awesome. They're designed to ingest breast milk, right? And that breast milk is loaded with what?
Fat.
Fat. Thank you very much. Right? So we are born fat burners. And that's important to understand because we're fearfully and wonderfully made. That's how we're designed. Right? But in America, especially, where we have the highest rates of obesity in the world, on the planet, we're the most obese country ever. We're the most obese country ever. We have these things called supermarkets, right? Where we can get anything and everything we want at any time, right? You can get a DiGiorno's pizza, right? Better than delivery, right? You can just go get a DiGiorno's pizza and pop in the oven, and then voila, you have, this great pizza, right? And they have TV dinners and microwave dinners, and they have cereal in a box, right? Now you can go on vacation and come back 7 years later and it's still the same cereal, right? You're like, look at that! Still tastes the same, still looks the same. It's amazing, right? And if you do that long enough, eventually you're going to click from that design that God made you to be, and He made me to be, and it's going to switch over, right? Then you're going to develop sickness or disease over time, and or your body's not going to look and feel like it used to look and feel, right? And then if that's the case, and then one day you get up and you look in the mirror, you go to do your belt or whatever, and you're just like, I have to do something here. And the people who have to do something, 99% of them do two things. What do? They cut down calories, they reduce calories and reduce fat, right? And then they exercise, right? And then if they're really, really disciplined, right? After a period of time, they're like, ooh, I met my goal, whatever that goal is, right? Except, all they've done is they've made themselves ultimately more sick. They're like, what do you mean more sick? I'm 15 pounds lighter. You're more sick. You've lost bone density, you've lost muscle mass, you're still a sugar burner, and you're really not much healthier, And we don't want that. We want to teach people on how to really take advantage of our design. Next slide.
Alright, we got a slight delay.
That's all right. That's all right, you're fine. So this is just one more thing on fat oxidation versus exercise intensity. HCD is a high carbohydrate diet, and LCD is a low carbohydrate diet. So again, I just want to hammer this home as we move on. When you're lowering carbohydrates, you burn a tremendous amount more fat during your day and during exercise. And that's just the final kind of point of this whole thing is, as we lower carbohydrates, improve the quality of our food intake, it's proven immensely, no matter the duration or the intensity, that you're going to burn more fat. Fair enough? Good. So, and how long will that take, by the way, to get into that state? Thank you all. Now you're waking up. 1 to 8 weeks. That's how long that takes, right? And if you stick with it, in 1 to 8 weeks, you'll switch over, and you'll stay switched over if and until you misbehave long enough to switch you back over. Next slide. So a couple slides here on toxicity, because in practice, as people have done this from time to time, we'll run into a patient's body that's really stubborn. And typically it's a lady who's really upset and starting to take her anger out on me and say, I have followed this program to the T and nothing's happened, you know, or I lost 10 pounds in the first month and now I'm stuck. So if you experience that, and even if you don't experience it, you know, one of the core principles of what I teach is you want your body to be in a detoxifying state, not a toxin storing state. And so here's some common toxins and hormone disruptors. Toxins in general disrupt the nervous system, they disrupt the immune system, and they disrupt the endocrine system, which is where our hormones come from. So skincare, makeup, cleaning products, there's a website, ewg.org, that will really point you towards what's good and what's not good as far as that goes. Deodorant, always purchase aluminum-free deodorant. Try and drink and purify your water. This tri-state region right here has been shown to have the most toxic air in the country. Did you all know that? So not LA smog or New York City, it's right here just because of factories and plants. Plastics, root canals, metal fillings in your mouth, fluoride are all very toxic. So again, buy fluoride-free toothpaste. New carpet and paint in your house can set people over the edge. From a food perspective, sugars, bad fats, toxins, pesticides, herbicides. Microwave oven, bad stuff. I encourage people not to use them. Get rid of them. Switch from Teflon-coated pans to stainless steel, cast iron, ceramic. Medicines. When I'm working with patients, sometimes they're going to have challenges in their body because their medicines are toxic. Non-organic dairy and meats. Vaccines. Alcohol. Artificial sweeteners. Mold. Smoking. Lead, mercury, aluminum, all the heavy metals, which a lot of people don't realize they're loaded with these heavy metals. So what do? You start progressing on this, and you start switching until eventually you have as many of those out of your life as you possibly can. Next. So understanding detox. Again, step one is to reduce our exposures, and then to make sure that our body becomes a fat burner so we can flush these toxins. So different steps. One of the things that we've done recently is we've incorporated as many essential oils into switching things over, like cleaning products and body products. We use the oils for internal, external health, and in foods where appropriate. So, and this is actually began to save us a lot of money as well. So, and the ones that I like, and there's a lot of, I'll say, good ones out there, but in my studies, the best ones are a company name, or a product name of Mayo. Eat and supplement with what? Good bacteria. So supplement with probiotics and fermented foods. Utilize functional lab testing. Barbara, put you on the spot again because you're so good. what lab in particular do we like to look at to have an idea on toxicity above and beyond heavy metals? Do you know?
On heavy metals, it's not glutathione.
It is glutathione,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a lab that we like to look at, just like we like to look at leptin, called glutathione, and that really gives us an idea of how toxic you are, how well your body is detoxing. And again, you don't know unless you look at that. Drink 1 ounce of water for 2 pounds of body weight every day, and then incorporate intermittent fasting, which I'm going to teach you. Exercise can be tremendous at detoxing, and then regular bowel movements. You know, 2 to 3 a day is normal. I know, and I know. And so sometimes it's once a week or once every 2 or 3 or 4 days. 2 to 3 bowel movements a day is normal. If you're not having that, you need to work towards that, because that's a sign, just like the Valhalla scale, just like your leptin, that things aren't right. Next slide. Just a thing on sugar. Low-fat recommendations have led to a dramatic increase in what? Sugar consumption. And it is, in fact, sugar, not fat, that drives heart disease. According to a 2013 report on sugar consumption, up to 40% of U.S. healthcare expenditures are for diseases directly related to the overconsumption of sugar. So again, this is from Dr. Mercola. He says the low-fat craze has been particularly harmful because when the food industry removed the fat, they replaced it with high amounts of sugar to make food palatable. As a general rule, a diet that promotes health is high in healthful fats and very, very low in sugar and non-vegetable carbohydrates, along with a moderate amount of high-quality protein. So again, part of what happened, if you look at a map of our country, is that around 1980, everything began to change. And 1980 is when everything began to, we began to get these low-fat, no-fat guidelines, they were actually driven by the farming industry. They said, we've got to figure out a way to get more grains in people. So there was kind of a backdoor conversation had, and so these low-fat, whole grain conversations came out, and the next thing you know, people started eating grains like crazy, sugar like crazy, and cutting out fat, and the opposite of what most people would have thought happened. People got fat, right? That's what happened. And so from 1980 to today, we have, as Americans, we pretty much resemble the rest of the modern world up until those changes, and then we just got fat. So, and sick as well. Next slide. Just a bit on probiotics, and because this is new to most people, is that our body has 10 times the amount of bacteria as it does cells. So a lot that grosses people out a little bit, but we have 10 times the amount of bacteria in our body as we do cells. And God designed those bacteria to work for us and to help our body work. But what's happened is, due to a lot of antibiotics, pesticides, and herbicides in our food supply, it's began to destroy and alter those bacteria. And so, and I know I was definitely one of these people that my gastrointestinal kind of composition was really messed up. So then this leads to things as well as the body's ability to burn fat, cravings, sugar cravings in particular. And so one of my general recommendations is that everybody takes a probiotic and everybody begins to look at fermented foods, right? That these fermented foods are powerful for us, but we've got to ingest them as well. Next, Steve. So I always teach this, so hopefully people have heard me speak before remember this. The number one lacking nutrient in the U.S. diet are what? Healthy fats. And so for some of you, you're like, yeah, that's old hat, but for some of you, you're like, okay, you've got my attention now. Healthy fats are vital for fat burning, for brain health, reduction of pain, decreased inflammation, healthy hormones, including the thyroid and the adrenals, because when I say hormones, I think a lot of people think kind of sex hormones, but thyroid and adrenals as well. They're necessary for healing, increasing flexibility, stabilizing energy, and then lastly, DNA repair or healing. So here's a list, and I encourage you to memorize them, to write these down, to know them if you don't already, of healthy fats. Because if you ask most people, hey, what are healthy fats? They would say, I didn't know there was such a thing. I didn't know they existed. I thought we were supposed to avoid fats. I thought fats made us fat, right? Coconut oil, avocados, grass-fed butter, olive oil, brain octane oil, which I'm going to demo for you here. And brain octane oil shifts the body into a keto-adapted state. So it's fat burning. Purified fish oil or krill oil, raw nuts and seeds, pretty much anything that's grass-fed, properly grass-fed, and all of its constituents, free-range as well, free-range chicken, eggs, turkey, and then wild Alaskan salmon. And there's some other fish as well. Anchovies, sardines will usually fall into this category. What do we want to avoid? We want to avoid canola, corn, soy, vegetable oils, peanut oil as well. Everything in the butter category that's not grass-fed, and then foods as well with a long shelf life. In order for foods to have a long shelf life, they have to have a bad fat in there to stabilize them. So, if, again, like I said, if you could, honestly look, and that's going to kind of look and taste the same a year from now, that has a bad fat in it. So, very important. We want to definitely get rid of all bad fats. We want to get rid of them, and that's a huge step in the right direction. And then we want to make sure we're getting plenty of these good fats. And then there's this marriage, I tell people, the marriage of healthy fats and healthy proteins, in that anything that's grass-fed, so to speak, other than not pork, but grass-fed, free-range, wild salmon is going to have both a healthy protein and a healthy fat. So like an egg, a free-range egg is a healthy protein and a healthy fat. So it's perfect. God designed it well. Grass-fed steak is a healthy fat and a healthy protein. Wild salmon is a healthy fat and a healthy protein. So they go together. It's really powerful. And then there's ways to make life, I say sometimes make life easier, quicker, faster, by combining products, if you will, like a pure protein powder. A couple examples here. This is a grass-fed whey concentrate protein powder, and this is a chia protein and a pea protein, so it's a vegetable-based protein. So these are toxin-free, bad fat-free, low or no sugar, and then you can combine them with good fats in the form of a smoothie by adding coconut milk. So you could add coconut milk, for example, to one of these, and you've got a good fat and you've got a good protein. And it makes life sometimes quicker and easier, as opposed to a gourmet meal, right? It just becomes easier. And then you can add things in there like spinach, berries, cinnamon, turmeric, chia seeds, all those different things if you wanted to kind of have fun with it and kick it up a notch. So very important, like if I can get people to understand, I try and teach this, plan 7 meals a week. So plan 7 meals a week. Those are going to be the 7 meals that you cook, so to speak, for your dinner and or leftovers. And then the rest of the week, just use good proteins and good fats to get you by, so to speak. Now, if you like to make 2 or 3 meals a day, every single day, great. Just leave me your address and I'll come over from time to time, right? But that's difficult for most people. So 7 healthy meals a week, and then the rest you use, different products to help with that. Next slide. Any questions about that slide in particular? Okay.
What about almond milk?
Almond milk, good. Buy it unsweetened, right? It's still not necessarily a crystal clear, pure product, but it's definitely better than most people's milk choices. So unsweetened almond milk, good, but if I had to choose between unsweetened almond milk or unsweetened coconut milk, I'd go with unsweetened coconut milk. So one of the things you want to look out for on those containers is carrageenan. If you look on the box and you see carrageenan, that's a toxin. It's not a good thing. So when you look at those cartons of coconut milk or those cartons of almond milk, oftentimes you'll see carrageenan, and it's not the cleanest thing in the world. So, but still better, you know, than a lot of other things.
How do you spell that?
C-A-R-A-G-E-A-N-N-A-N. Final answer.
One more time, please.
C-A-R-A-G-E-A, I think it's 2 N's, so N-N-A-N. If not, that'll get you there, right? Top fat-burning foods. And you see foods in quotes, and you'll see why here in a minute. Coconut oil, milk, flour. I have a bonus for you all. You ready for this, Steve? So last night, I was home with all of our kids while my wife is in New York City having the time of her life. And I made coconut flour tortillas, right? And the website is stupideasypaleo.com. That's the website, right? I didn't make the name, it's their website. But coconut flour tortillas, like if you like pizza, right? I like pizza, right? And I like tacos, right? But when you follow this program, there's a lot of don'ts, if you will, and then from time to time you'll start to have visions and dreams, right? Of tacos or pizza, right? And so for all this time, I've yet to find a tortilla, like all these years. So I do one of two things. We don't do any tortillas, or I have an organic corn tortilla. Not the end of the world to have an organic corn tortilla, right? But if you're really wanting to stay and get keto adapted, corn tortilla is not part of the program. So I found this recipe, and I've tried to make tortillas about 10 different ways following this program, and every time they're horrible. And they're miserable, and then you're just mad because you made a mess, and then you still want the tortilla, right? So they have this tortilla recipe on their website that actually works. Like, it really works. And so I made these amazing coconut flour tortillas last night, and they met all the criteria. Number one, when you start experimenting with these new flours, coconut flour, almond flour, you sometimes get humbled really quickly. Like, that doesn't look like the picture, right? And then you like want to send a message and they say, you're a liar. Like, that is not the actual picture of that stuff, right? So if you like tortillas, that's a little bonus for you. And it's only 4 ingredients, and they taste great, and they're pliable, like they actually are pliable, and they don't break. StupidEasyPaleo.com. See, initially you weren't going to write that down, and then after I described it, you're like, all right, I'm going to write it down now. So coconut oil, milk, flour, medium train triglyceride oil, which is also MCT oil, upgraded brain oil, grass-fed beef, butter, grass-fed whey protein, raw organic cheeses, lemon lime juice, all of that, raw apple cider vinegar, avocados, chia seeds and ground flax seeds, free-range eggs, cruciferous vegetables, but make sure that you steam, cook, or break them down with vinegar, because these vegetables raw are actually kind of hard on the body. Okay, and so cruciferous vegetables have become really popular, and so people are like, kale is awesome, and broccoli is awesome, and cabbage and Brussels sprouts are awesome, and they are, but they need to be broken down. Otherwise, they can actually be harmful to the body. Okay, so very important.
What about roasted broccoli?
Roasted broccoli is fine. Yes, ma'am.
If you put kale in your protein shakes, then should it still be broken down?
Yes. That's kind of a new thing. It's not the worst thing in the world to eat raw kale, but when you understand it, these foods have protective mechanisms in nature, just like a bean has a protective mechanism, right? You wouldn't go pick a pinto bean and eat it, right? Does that make sense? You've got to soak it, and then you've got to cook it, and then you've got to drain off that water, and that's because of the protective mechanism. So these cruciferous vegetables have a kind of a protective mechanism that our body deals better with them when they're broken down. So I could have left that little tidbit out, like not shared that with you all, but when I learn details like this, I want to pass it on, and I want to help you all Otherwise, 3 years from now, you'll read about it and say, "He never told me that." That bald-headed guy, right?
Excuse me, so how would you break down kale?
Yeah, you can bake it. You can bake it. You can saute it. Or if you use like a good vinaigrette salad dressing, like you use it for a salad, if you let that dressing just be with that kale for a half an hour or so, that's also oftentimes enough to break it down as well.
Is that even incorporated into, say, pressed juicing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah. So that's the thing. And do we lose some nutrients when we cook it? Yeah, we will lose some nutrients when we cook it. And will we lose some enzymes? Yes, but it needs to be broken down a little bit.
So when you press juice, it's broken down. We use it.
I would soak it in vinegar, or at least soak it in water. For vinegar could be a half an hour, but water could be a couple hours, just to let it release some of its quote-unquote toxins. Yeah. And especially if you have a thyroid issue. If you have a thyroid issue, you do not want to ingest these things, so to speak, raw. Berries, organic dark chocolate, olive oil, fermented foods, spices, herbs, plants, cinnamon, ginger, turmeric, cayenne, moringa. So moringa is actually the leaf from a tree. And there's two powders, again, that I like and that they have back there, Smart Mix and Super Mix. This is a superfood. And it does a lot of things in the body. It's an adaptogen as well. Oregano, sleep. Remember I said foods in quote? Sleep is one of our best fat-burning foods. So a lot of people don't get enough, don't have a good quantity or quality of sleep. You want to make sure you're doing everything you can to get that sleep. For some people, it's just going to bed. And for others, there's things that we need to work on so your body will sleep. This is really important for us. If you don't get enough sleep over time, it'll switch you over again. It'll switch you from a fat burner to a sugar burner. So, very important to understand. Onions, garlic, peppers, organic coffee and tea. And again, you'll see premium tea there. It'll be a part of what we demo for you here in a minute. Just a really good tea that I like to use. And then leafy green vegetables. So those are the fat-burning foods. This is the book I recommend, The Cellular Healing Diet. That's what Barbara was alluding to. It really goes in line with these principles. Next. This is really funny. So they think there is food in our food. Right? When we look at these things, it's really not food. We call it food. Hey, you want to go to the store and get some food? And that stuff isn't food. If you look at the labels, it's crazy. Next slide. So the top toxic foods, and by the way, that wasn't me. That wasn't my picture there in the middle there. So my wife has a nephew, and he calls me Dr. Evil from time to time. It's kind of funny, but not really. So the top toxic foods, canola vegetable oils, conventional meats, so any meat that wasn't truly raised properly or fed properly, pork and shellfish. I hate to rain on people's parades, but they're toxic. Pork and shellfish are toxic across the board. What about an organic free-range pig? It's still toxic, like just by design. Okay. White bread and grains that contain gluten. So again, gluten is definitely not our friend. Sprayed produce, soy protein, table salt, margarine, diet soda and drinks, anything that comes from or has GMO corn, soy, or beets, because GMO beets are used to make a lot of sugar. Commercial dairy, high fructose corn syrup is possibly one of the most toxic things we could ever ingest. So just a side note, this is kind of weird, but my wife from time to time really likes a soda. She does. She's like, get off of me, all right? I just want a treat, right? The one soda that we know of, you can buy stuff in the health food store, that's like, but some of that stuff really tastes horrible, right? And it doesn't really mimic whatever you're looking for. So Sierra Mist, you know, you can find that about anywhere. It's sweetened with sugar. I think it's pure cane sugar versus sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. Yeah, so if you want a treat or you're hankering for a soda, just try and do Sierra Mist, all right? Again, it's still sugar, but it's better.
Pepsi has a throwback. It's called Pepsi Throwback, but it's just sugar too.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good to know.
Pepsi
Pepsi,
Throwback.
an old school one. Doesn't have cocaine in it or anything like that.
Maybe.
Coca-Cola. Everybody knows that, right? Initial Coca-Cola had
Yeah.
cocaine in it. You're like, man, these people love this stuff, right? Yeah. Monosodium glutamate, most diet and low-fat foods. So again, if you see like diet or low-fat or anything, just put it back, right? It's like, you know, sugar-free, fat-free, just absolutely, that's a sign. Stress and poor sleep are going to mess these things up, and then learn to read labels. You know, it's not hard, but in the beginning it can be, you know, it can make your grocery trips longer, but just read. This is from, where's this from, everybody? Weight Watchers, right? Because Weight Watchers stuff is going to be really good for you, right? It's just going to be, you just follow Weight Watchers plan and it makes you healthy. Of course it does not. So, this is a vanilla fudge sundae cone, right? A sugar cone is topped with vanilla ice cream, yada, yada, yada. The sugar cone contains bleached wheat flour, so that's toxic, that's gluten, sugar, molasses, canola oil, bad fat, salt, table salt, soy lecithin, not good, and caramel color. The chocolate coating contains soybean oil, bad fat, lactitol, cocoa, chocolate liquor, whey, it's going to be bad whey, partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, more bad fat, cocoa butter, you know, and then of course we need to put some distilled monoglycerides in it because when you cook at home you always add that. Soy lecithin, artificial flavor, salt, sucralose, which is also named called Splenda, and vanillin, right? So what does that have in it? Sugars, bad fats, toxins. And yet again, they're selling that stuff quite a bit, right? And then people get happy if they follow the guidelines. They say, I followed Weight Watchers and I lost sometimes 72 pounds, right? It's like, great, I'm glad that you have 72 less pounds, but it didn't teach you anything about being healthy. Next, or very little, I should say. So logistics, 1 to 8 weeks. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is how we're designed. So we're designed to be able to eat at night, ideally a couple hours before bed, you know, kind of the longer the better, 3-4 hours is good. And then not eat for a couple hours after we wake up. That's how we're designed. So how many people have heard the most important meal of the day is breakfast? Everybody's heard that, right? That's not in the science, okay? It's not. I don't know. It probably came from the cereal makers. I don't know. You know, and I've said that a million times. I've repeated it. Hey, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. We tell that to our kids, you know, when they're getting ready to go to school. Hey, you've got to eat. This is the most important meal of the day type thing, except it's not. Okay? The most important meal of the day is every time you eat. That's the most important meal. Every time you put anything into your body, that's important. And then times when you're not supposed to put anything in your body, that's important. And then times when you are, that's important as well. So one of the ways we're designed is we're designed to be fat burners. One of the ways to get there and stay there is you eat when you're hungry. Truly hungry. All right? And so sometimes there's habitual eating, and then sometimes there's like sugar eating, right? And we want to break that cycle. So the idea is from dinner to the next time you put something in your body, you want that to be at least 12 hours, and ideally pushing towards 14, 16, 18 hours. Okay? So if you eat dinner at 6 p.m., then you may eat again at 8, 10, 12. You know, and some people, I say, what time do you eat? They say 5:30 in the morning. Why? That's when I have to eat in order to go to work, right? Or habit, or because someone told me it's the most important meal of the day. And so when you're a fat burner, you will naturally start to increase that time from dinner to when you actually put, we'll say, food into your body. Okay? And in the beginning, in that first 1 to 8 weeks, you may be cranky, you may be tired, you may kind of go up and down with your moods and things like that, but it's worth getting there. And then I'll tell you some things that are okay to do that really aren't considered eating. So this is very, 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 very important as far as this process. Another logistic is the basic diet that I recommend, if you will, is called the cellular healing diet. We have a few of the books back there. It's quote-unquote low carbohydrate because low carbohydrate is different for everybody, right? For some people, they literally need to be under 20 grams of carbs per day. And if they don't, they won't keto adapt. So it takes less than 20 grams a day for 1 to 8 weeks to finally get some people to keto adapt, okay, or to become a fat burner. Worth it totally? For some it's 50, for some it's 100. So I just say lower and restrict those carbohydrates. Keep lowering and restricting, and then you can measure by ketone strips. Okay, so you can buy ketone strips and you check your urine to see if you're keto adapted. Okay, and I don't want to get too scientific, but you can get ketone strips. Yes, ma'am.
What about a vegetarian?
Vegetarian. They can totally do this. They can totally do this. But they would need to use good sources of protein. So they would definitely need a protein powder, a vegetable-based protein powder, for sure. It's the same protocols, same design, same body. They just would utilize some good protein powders. And then obviously different types of vegetarians, right? Some do eggs, some don't do eggs, etc. So the gist of it is healthy fats, healthy proteins, and then approved carbohydrates in their diet. And the book goes through that. Get rid of sugars and grains. And then with protein as well, this is not a 52-ounce ribeye and 2 green beans, right? Because some of my men or ladies will say, hey doc, you're following the diet well, and then maybe they have some obstacles. Okay, what'd you have for dinner? Okay, I had 3 chickens last night and 2 pieces of spinach, right? So it's 0.5 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight per day. So if you want the details, you can write this down or you can say, I get it. So if you weigh 200 pounds, it's 100 to 160 grams of protein per day. Try not to do more than that. Try not to do less than that as well. Start your day with water, always. Use bulletproof coffee or bulletproof tea as a continuation of your intermittent fasting. You could use vegetable juicing as a continuation of your fasting. It's not going to mess it up at all. So you're fine there. And then I'm going to demonstrate this here in a minute. Use smoothies. I say Cairo smoothies just because a good protein powder, coconut milk, is a good way to actually on some level continue your intermittent fast. So if you had a 7 a.m. smoothie and it was good protein powder and maybe some coconut milk and some berries, that on some level is considered continuing your fast. But I say again, learn to wait to put these things in your body until you're hungry, and until your body really signals that it needs something. Get serious about sleep, and then follow the fitness guidelines, which we'll go through. Next, Steve. So I'll walk you through this, and then I'll show you all some of these products, and then they're going to make them back there and deliver them to you all. So bulletproof coffee, raise your hand if you've heard of it. Right? There's a website, bulletproofexec.com. It is the #1 podcast in the world. So there's a guy named Dave Asprey, and he's got the #1 podcast in the world. He didn't really invent anything. He kind of brought it to people's attention. And Bulletproof is also a brand, but it doesn't have to be a brand. Okay? So the idea is if you're a coffee drinker or you drink tea, if you're not, you don't even have to do this, but if you are and/or you like these things, you can use it. So organic coffee, organic tea, again, today we have the premium tea. Brain octane oil. 1 tablespoon of brain octane oil is the equivalent to 18 tablespoons of the good stuff in coconut oil. So people say, could I use coconut oil? Yes. totally, but you just have to understand 1 tablespoon of brain octane oil is the equivalent of 18 tablespoons of coconut oil. Grass-fed butter, and we'll talk about that. And then some options that you can add. You can add stevia to sweeten it. You can add cinnamon oil, protein powder, any of that stuff. So what's happening here? What's happening is, number one, you're continuing your fast, and then number two is you're providing your body with a direct line of ketones. So you're stimulating fat burning, and it's the perfect fuel for your brain. So the coffee and the tea help bring these ketones to your brain. Do you have to do this? Say no. Can you utilize this to help you? Yes. And this allows a lot of people to go until, say, noon before they put food into their body. Okay? So let's go back here to this table. We're just going to show you some things, and they're going to make it for you. Come on, y'all. So they're going to make you all some samples. As they do, you can tell them tea or coffee or no thank you. Either way is fine. So I've already brewed up some organic coffee and some premium tea. So premium tea is here. This is a Zevia product. Really clean tea with a lot of really cool stuff in here for health and cleansing and brain and all of that. The coffee is, this is an organic Ethiopian coffee. A couple things on coffee. You want to buy organic, and you want it to be wet processed. So kind of as you look for coffee, organic and what?
Wet process.
Wet processed. Because coffee is very toxic if it's not organic. And then number two, if it's dry roasted, then it tends to develop a toxin. And so that's the gist on coffee.
Where do you find?
You can find it in a lot of places, like Schnucks, Kroger, Walmart. Walmart actually has an organic coffee, but I don't know how it's processed. But you just have to, you really have to look. I tell people once you find a good one, you know, you can just obviously repeat that habit. But again, you want to look for organic and wet process. Okay, and why wet process? Anybody remember? Because there's an additional toxin that tends to form and hang out in a dry roasted organic coffee called an ochre toxin, which is a lot like a mold toxin. So when you make it, again, the general gist of it is, you know, whatever you choose, add in, you could use coconut oil or brain octane oil. Start out with 1 teaspoon and work your way up to 2 tablespoons. Again, it's stimulating ketosis. You will love how your brain functions on brain octane oil. You'll kind of flip out in a good way. Then you can add stevia to sweeten it. So how many people here drink coffee? Right? And how many people drink tea? Right? And so with coffee or tea, everybody has it their way, right? Whatever their way is, right? Cream, sugar, however people do it, that's how you do it. Lattes, mochas, etc. So you can basically mimic whatever you're used to doing in this thing. If you like your coffee black, fine, just do coffee and do some brain octane oil. The butter kind of acts like the cream that people use, except the butter, the grass-fed butter, again, is great for your brain and great for fat burning. So additionally, you can add protein powder. So you could use like a vanilla or a chocolate or even a flavorless protein powder. And that provides some protein if you've had a big workout in the morning. So if you work out heavy in the morning, you can do that for protein and flavor. And then also, what I'm really, really digging right now is I'll add this cinnamon oil from Amaya. And so the cinnamon oil, 1 to 2 drops is all you need because it's very powerful. What's cinnamon do? Anybody? Blood sugar regulation. So major blood sugar regulation and a very potent antioxidant as well. So you want to take what you ingest, what you drink, and what you eat, and you want to make it powerful. You want to make it healing. You want to make it like it's designed to be. And so sometimes you do it just with your cooking, right? You use actual garlic and you make everything perfectly. And sometimes you don't have the opportunity to do that. So you use truly pure products in order to, for lack of a better term, mimic that or replace that. Okay, raise your hand if you're a little bit busy in your life right now. Okay, if you're not, you'll teach the next seminar, please, right? Because we're busy, like we're really busy. But just busy doesn't give us an excuse to destroy our body. Okay? So we'll go back to your seats. They're gonna start making batches of this stuff, right? And then delivering them as well to the people. You can say no thank you. You can say I want coffee, I want tea. Fair enough? Awesome. You can go sit down. We'll finish up.
So like the flavors? Yeah, express box.
It's part of the procedure packs as well. So it's kind of part of their awesome. Very good.
That should get you results.
Why do you all Okay, everybody, we're going to finish up. Coffee's coming your way, and or tea, and or nothing, right? Whatever you want. Next slide, Steve.
Next slide.
Awesome. All right, good. Let's talk about fitness for a minute. Fitness definitely helps us become and or stay a fat burner. But before fitness comes structure and comes mobility. So again, I've practiced for 18 years, and I've seen this story written 1,000 times over. Is somebody's wanting to get healthy or get in shape, and so they start exercising. But there's some things that we can learn about our body that are important. This picture is really crucial. All the areas that are blue are intended to be mobile. So every area that's blue on this chart, we're intended to have great mobility. We're intended to have these joints really be able to show off and move. Every area that's orange, I'll call that orange, is intended to be stable. So it is really not intended to have incredible mobility. It's designed to have a certain type of mobility. So if we lose mobility in one or more of these areas, it puts more stress on the areas that are intended to be stable, and then over time we have a breakdown. Okay, so this is very, very important to me in practice and having people understand this. So in our practice, everybody's going to get a structural assessment. 98% of patients are going to have x-rays, and everyone's going to get assessed for mobility. So what happens again is we lose mobility in these areas because we don't work on them, and then also because most of us do a lot of sitting, and so we end up breaking down these tissues as well. So there's an exercise program called Primal Movement. It takes 5 to 7 minutes a day, and it's on our YouTube page, so it's free. You can go to it. It's 5 to 7 minutes a day of mobility work. And then as well as a follow-up to that, I really love people doing bear crawls. So if you're not, you don't have primal movement memorized, and you're somewhere else, you can work on doing bear crawls. I won't pick on your bars over here.
And do barefoot in the backyard.
Yes, and ideally barefoot in the backyard, and ideally up and down hills as well. So these are things that you can progress on, but what would your mouth feel like if you didn't brush your teeth for a couple weeks. Right? That was good. That was perfect. Everyone looked at me. Horrible, right? You know, I know that, you know, when you don't brush your teeth, if you are used to doing that, you know, your mouth feels horrible, right? It just, it feels disgusting. Or if you eat sugary foods and you're like, ugh, it feels bad, right? Well, that's because we're acclimated to that. We're trained. We're used to what it should/can feel like. But with our structure, we're not. We've lost acclimation. We don't remember what things should move like. We don't remember what things should feel like, right? Until you really work at this. And so, I've been working at this really aggressively for about 7 months now. Maybe missed 1 or 2 days. And this is something that, for your health, how much does it cost to do this?
Nothing.
0. Nothing, right? You don't even have to buy protein powder to do this, right? It's free. And the idea is, I'm going to kind of do my own picture as well here of faces. You want to move closer and closer and closer towards being able to do a split, right? That was a good one, right? Your face is good, right? And when I say that, people are like, no way, Jose, that could never happen for me again. And it may never happen for you again. But if you think about doing the splits, like if you really think about it, you kind of picture yourself and you see yourself breaking in two, that's a sign that you're not very mobile, right? And so when we talk about hips, like that thing here in the hips is actually, you know, this joint right here. Is that for most people, due to sitting in life, they have basically no hip mobility, right? And so their low back has to do all the work, and then eventually it wears out, and then they say, yeah, I think I'm just getting old. Yeah. Just like my grandpa and my dad, my low back wore out. Yeah, because you all lost mobility, and then you wore out, just like they did. And it doesn't have to be that way. When you do this, ideally daily, 5 to 7 minutes, you can watch the video as well, like I said, but after a couple of days, you'll have it memorized. You don't have to watch a video again. You've got it, and you just work at it. You will slowly regain mobility. How fast will it happen? Very slowly. This is a slow process. So like in 6 months, if you do it faithfully daily, you may improve your mobility by 20%. Okay? So, and that's okay. You know, because in a year, maybe it's 40%. And in a couple of years, you can sometimes regain virtually 100% mobility. And this is just awesome. This is like, I'm so passionate about this right now, teaching people this. So again, before you exercise, at least address mobility. You know, and what I mean by that is you can still go exercise tomorrow or today if you want, but make sure that you're working mobility as well. Okay?
What's your YouTube page?
Joshua, what's our YouTube page?
YouTube.com/EH Dr. Harmon.
EH Dr. Harmon.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It's
EHDR, Harmon, Harmon. And we have other things on there as well. There's other stretches and things like that, but this is really powerful. And it helps your chiropractic. If you're a chiropractic patient, it helps your chiropractic care help you. Next. So with fitness, which is next, we're not going to go through all this. Step 1 is work on your structure and mobility. And then step 2 is it usually breaks down to one of 2 types of exercise. Longer duration cardiovascular, what we consider cardiovascular, so at 20+ minutes, moderate intensity walking, biking, elliptical, swimming, which is really good for us if it's done right. And then the other aspect is high intensity, short duration. CrossFit, P90X, things like that. And you can do this on your own. The key is, again, high intensity, short duration. 10 to 60 second bursts, followed by a relaxation period, 10 to 60 second burst. And you can do a great workout in literally 5 to 10 minutes. I love yoga. I love yoga. Yoga kind of ties into primal movement somewhat. They're a little bit different because yoga tends to be more holding of stretches, whereas primal movement is more moving of stretches, but they're both good. Yeah, great question. So I encourage people to do yoga for sure. And then the other thing on burst and surge is that 10 to 60 second thing, or who's heard of an AMRAP? AMRAP, any AMRAP people here? AMRAP is as many reps as possible. So that's where you're going 5 to 10 minutes as hard as you can and trying to achieve as many, whatever, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, burpees in that period of time. So that's another version of high intensity, short duration. 5, right? Humble beginnings, right? So, but the issue here is that a lot of people, you know, aren't dialed in on their fitness, and that's just you want to do fitness the right way, and if you want it to be secondary to your structure and your mobility.
What about a rowing machine?
A rowing machine, fantastic, and you can do it either way. You can use a rowing machine for long duration cardio, so lower intensity, longer period of time, or you could do it for high intensity, 10 to 60 second burst, right? Rest, 10 to 60 second burst, rest, or you could do that AMRAP, so to meaning as many reps as you can possibly do, or as much distance as you can possibly do in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So absolutely, an exercise bike can be used for all of this. You know, an elliptical machine can be used for all of this. And then going back to here as well, if you are insulin or leptin resistant, as long as you keep eating fructose and grains, you're programming your body to create and store fat. So just please, please, please understand this. Just as long, if you're insulin or leptin resistant, so you deemed either through lab testing or just through listening that you're resistant, then don't turn around and do so many good things and then eat that pasta or that bread or that whatever it is. Don't. You know, do yourself a favor. Next, Steve. Lastly, we'll focus on the nerve system, and this is really why I'm here. This is why I do what I do, is just putting all of this together. The purpose of the braided nerve system is to control and coordinate every cell, every tissue, every organ in the body, and to adapt us to our surrounding environment. So when we look at the human body, there's a master regulating system. That's the nerve system, and it regulates every single cell, tissue, and organ in the body. The quality of our healing is directly proportional to the functional capacity of the nerve system to send and receive messages. So, in chiropractic, you know, people oftentimes look at me or they talk to me as like the nutrition, lab testing expert, what have you. But all of that nutrition and lab testing came out of this. It's like, how do we get the nerve system to be healthy and happy? And so when we look here, first of all, number one, when you look at the spine from the side, it has what?
Curve.
It has curves. So, what does your spine from the side look like? What's it look like? Do you know? Most people are like, I have no clue, right?
My neck's straight.
Yeah, and so if your neck is straight and you're eating organic sauteed kale and you're drinking bulletproof coffee, that's great, but your nerve system is stressed all the time. Your nerve system is stressed all the time, and what does your nerve system control? Every cell, tissue, and organ in your body, and it adapts to our environment. So it ties back to, again, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. That's how we're made. It's how we're designed, but certain things shift us. And when they shift us, we get the opportunity to know that. Doctor means teacher. That's what doctor means. It doesn't mean fixer or curer. It means teacher. And so my job is to teach and help people really understand your body, how well it's really made. And so just like we should know our Valhalla number, it'd be really cool to know our leptin number, our glutathione on lab testing. It's more important, in my opinion, to know what's your structure look like, number one. What's your mobility? Are you mobile where you're supposed to be mobile? Are you stable where you're supposed to be stable? And then begin to work on those things together. Next slide, Steve. It's from Dr. Nick Gonzalez, and I love seeing a show of hands, and sometimes there's zero. Does anybody know who Dr. Nick Gonzalez is? Okay. Dr. Nick Gonzalez is considered by many to be the top cancer doctor in the world at taking hopeless cases and seeing those people live. And he practices in New York City. So I love studying his work. And then I caught this, and it just continued to validate what we do. The autonomic nerve system ultimately controls all of the endocrine organs that secrete what? Hormones, like the thyroid, the pancreas, the adrenals, the ovaries, the testicles. It controls cardiovascular function. All digestion is controlled by the ANS, the autonomic nervous system. People that have a dominant sympathetic system and a weak parasympathetic system are prone to solid tumors of basically any tissue in the body. People with a dominant parasympathetic and a weak sympathetic tend to get immunological cancers like leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma, and sarcomas. So again, they asked him, they said, Dr. Gonzalez, they said, is anybody balanced? He said, yeah, we do find people whose nervous system is balanced. He says, these people have to try really hard to get cancer. Right? So have we ever known somebody or heard about somebody who smoked cigarettes for 900 years, right, and never got lung cancer? Obviously, you know, but yeah, you're like, how can that person smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day from the age of 13 to the age of 97 and never die of lung cancer? Make sense, everybody? These are things that we may have never asked or maybe really delved into, but we're like, how can that be? How can that be? Right? And then someone we know at church who just got exposed to secondhand smoke gets lung cancer and dies. Something about that doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair. Right? And those are things that, you know, drive us. My mother, who battled lymphoma since I was 4 in 1976, nobody ever taught us or told her that she had a parasympathetic dominant nervous system. A parasympathetic dominant nervous system causing lymphoma to just grow and spread like crazy. And it didn't matter what she did. Chemotherapy, radiation, bone marrow transplants, eating garlic, it didn't matter. Until we were able to work with her and help her nervous system be more balanced, she suffered. And now she's been cancer-free since 1999, right? So when we look at this and understanding the body, nutrition's crucial. That's why it's part of the core 4. Fitness is crucial. That's why it's part of the core 4. But really understanding our body is really preeminent. Understanding how we're made, right? And so stress, crucial. We need stress adaptability, right? Sleep, crucial. Sleep's just as important as, you know, say garlic or grass-fed beef. Just as important, if not more important, to understand. So when we look at metrics, next slide, Steve. When we look at metrics, you know, I'm a teacher by nature. You know, one of the metrics that everyone should know is you should know your structure. You should know your biomechanics. What's your spine from the side look like? How close or far away are you on that structure? What's your spine from the front look like? How close or how far away are you on that? And step 1 is learning that, and then step 2 is what's going to help that and what's going to hurt that, right? And then the same way with mobility. Mobility, again, 5 to 7 minutes a day. In our practice, when we do chiropractic, we analyze structure, and then we're going to give patients things to do at home. Specific things for structure, and then things to work on with their mobility as well. And the same way in the office as well. So this is normal, again, of a neck from the side. This is not normal. How many people think that that would be painful? Absolutely not in most cases. You could have a neck that looks like that and never have neck pain your entire life. And you can't tell by looking either. People are like, well, look at me. It's like, you have nice skin. I don't know. So, and what they're showing here is this is the area of the spine that has a huge effect on your vagus nerve, which is your parasympathetic nerve system. Look at all this space here. This is space on the spinal cord, on the brain stem. And this is bone on spinal cord / bone on brainstem. And because that tissue there basically doesn't have any pain fibers, you won't feel it. It'll just affect your autonomic nervous system. It's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Next slide. Vitamin D. Again, the studies are really clear. If everybody's vitamin D levels were above 53, the research is showing that 75% of cancers would not exist. When we lab test, we see most people are around 25. That's where they're at. I had an autistic child this week. We lab tested. This is where his vitamin D is 9. 9. He's been to about 5 specialists and seen all kinds of doctors. No one tested. This is where his vitamin D is. So again, just another metric, and it ties into my basic supplement recommendations. Next. So core supplements. Core supplements. Vitamin D is a core supplement. What does that mean? It means if you have a heart rate, you should supplement with vitamin D. Okay, 35 IUs per pound of body weight, get lab tested, tweak it from there. And this goes from age 0 to 121. Okay, so as people say, what about my children? Same formula. If your child weighs 10 pounds, 10 pounds times 35 IUs equals 350 IUs. A good protein powder is, again, just there to make life easier. Smoothies, recipes, coffee, tea. And then a good probiotic. Okay? That's basic. Like if I see you down next month and you say, hey doc, what would you say that I take? Vitamin D, a probiotic, good protein powder. Then where do we go from there? We go a lot of different directions from there based upon lab testing. Okay? And then there's things like brain octane oil, getting the cellular healing diet book. I mentioned Smart Mix or Super Mix. That is just incorporated into your life because it's part of what? It's part of the foods that I recommend. Right? So all that goes hand in hand. Functional lab testing, as an example, what does it look like? Leptin, vitamin D, B12, inflammatory markers. What's a good inflammatory marker, Mr. Bellafield, to look at, would you say? Yeah, what's a good one? Would you say we were looking? Very good, awesome, yeah. Caught you off guard there, didn't I?
Thanks for giving me time to...
Yeah, so you did great. Let's try that again. Like, we'll just rewind the tape, right? Mr. Bellafield, what would be a good inflammatory marker? Homocysteine. Now you're too fast, right? So these are things that we look at, and they tell us things. They paint a picture, right, of our body, right? And this is, like, if you want to use, you want to know what this is? This is what medicine is supposed to be. This is what it's supposed to be. I spoke in Santa Claus this past summer. People say sometimes, you know, my medical doctor this, and we had a medical doctor in the audience, right? 2 weeks ago I got a message from that medical doctor. He said that him and his wife took all this information and they began to apply it, and they says their health has never been like it is right now. They never learned this. They don't learn this in med school, right? They learn how to prescribe and do surgeries. And in some cases, those things are life-saving. But in 99% of the cases, they're not health-building. See the difference? Right? So very important, make sure your supplements are pure. We have some supplements here. Steve has more information on the oils, more information on Smart Mix, Super Mix, more information on tea as well. All of the things that Steve has is through a company called Zija, and there's an opportunity or a way to get those products eventually for free. All of our stuff is what you call standard retail, although there is, I think, some discounts today. So very important as well. Last slide, Steve, I think. You'll love this, Steve. Your body is a what? Not a what? Very important. And then next slide. Action steps. Number one, if you're interested in getting your structure looked at in our practice, from here, our office it's 58 minutes away. So give or take, depending on where you live. So I get this question a lot of times, where are you located at? We're located in the, the mega city of Morganfield, right? It's a small town. So for some people, that's considered a long drive. We have people drive as far as 2 or 3 hours to come to our office. That's up to you. If you want to go deeper into your health, then it's $20 for the initial evaluation today. And that's actually a mistake because it's supposed to be more, but we kept it that way. And you can see Josh to schedule that. So that's number one. We'll do mobility and structural evaluation and tell you what's going on in there. Number two, get your supplements, whether via Josh or from Steve and his help. Remember, 1 to 8 weeks to normalize your leptin/keto